Oh boy, this run is going really well right now. Let's open the store, see what's in here. Oh, I can't read. That's okay though. Captain! Alright, well, at least I have the weapon to counter him. Okay, well, he is literally not taking any damage, even though I have the weapon meant to counter him, so that's pretty cool. That's okay though. We'll just, you know, have a little bit of a drawn-out fight. He's not really hitting me because I'm too good at this game, and I know what he does. Guess I'll just kite him around a little bit. More damage negated. This guy's taking ages to kill for some reason. Oh, look! Boy, there sure was a lot I could do to avoid that. Anyway, welcome back to Into Evil, everyone. So this time I'm playing the Barbarian class. She came out in the two-handed weapons update. If you don't know, two-handed weapons are weapons that require two hands to wield. So the way that it works is you have to have an empty hand. So presumably your left hand, you know, you keep your weapon in your right hand if you play Dark Souls or Elden Ring. That's pretty custom for you. And yeah, you just keep your left hand open. You can block with them. And they generally deal more damage per swing, but they're slower. The major upside that they have, though, is that they hit very hard, and they can hit enemies through their armor very easily, and sometimes even stagger them. So they're mainly meant for larger armored targets. I'm not going to say that they're better for bosses, because I don't actually think that's the case. With the exception of one boss. I think there is one boss that the two-handed weapons do very well against. But that's pretty much their whole deal. They benefit a lot from raw damage, because if you can find two-handed weapons that are dealing 4 or 5 damage, you can actually just blitz through a lot of the weaker enemies in a dungeon and just kill them very, very, very quickly. So I just backtracked into that room to relight my torch, because I don't think anybody wants to see a video where I'm running through pitch blackness. Now, you will see me using the spear for just a little while. I think I do swap it out as soon as I find a good two-handed weapon, but I don't really like the Barbarian starting two-handed weapon because she starts off with a dull Great Axe, as you can see there. So generally, Great Axes will deal 4 damage, but the dull Great Axe only does 3. So yeah, this character, despite already not being super OP, she did get nerfed because she used to not have a dull Great Axe. But I think in this room, it might be the next room, I do already find a better two-handed weapon. So we can finally get the run started with me actually playing the Barbarian and not just one-handing like any other class. So people who have already watched the other Into Evil videos, they know what two-handed weapon gameplay is like. It's pretty strong, it's pretty alright, right? It's a standard, there's nothing really wrong with it. But I'm going to try to show off the two-handed weapons for the entirety of the video. Here I find a dull Great Axe. This isn't actually what I take. I think there's another two-handed weapon in this room. It should be, yep, right there, it's the Bardish. The Bardish, by the way, super cancer Yu-Gi-Oh card for anybody here who plays Yu-Gi-Oh. But anyway, the Bardish, I prefer it because it deals slashing damage, so it has the ability to deal with zombies a little bit easier. I do dual wield them for a little bit, but I don't think I keep this dual wield stance going for very long. The reason why is because this dual wielded moveset, it just takes a really long time, and it's very easy for you to get punished if you don't literally one-shot everything that you did your little whirlwind through. So, decided to pick up the Branding Iron. I literally never use it. I end up swapping it out pretty much as soon as I find something better. I wanted it just to have a weapon that deals some sort of status, but again, I end up not using it. But this room that I just cleared here, you can see that's the strength of dual-wielding two-handed weapons. If you have the damage to one-shot a bunch of enemies, just run into a room, cleave everything. That's pretty much it, right? But to be fair, I could have cleared that room without dual-wielding, so... it's also super stamina intensive, so have to have a lot of stamina to do it. I have just about enough to make it work, but I still wouldn't recommend it unless you are super loaded on stamina pips. So yeah, I'm pretty much not going to be dual wielding at all for the rest of the run. I think the next time that I try it, I almost die for it. So yeah, it's way too risky. But I'm feeling pretty good right now. I have had a few runs. I've been trying to put out this video for a while, but my runs have just been super fucking unlucky, man. Like, I've had runs where I just don't find better two-handed weapons. I've had runs where all I find are other dull two-handed weapons, so I can never hit like the breakpoint of 4 or 5 damage, because she starts off at 3, and 3 is unfortunately not a good breakpoint for damage. You're not doing a lot of one-shotting smaller enemies with only 3 damage per swing. You want to hit at least 4 or 5. And yeah, I've had runs where I just don't find a two-handed weapon in the entire run, or all the ones that I find are dull, and it really sucks. But this is where the two-handed weapons actually shine, is against these more armored targets. You can see my strikes don't rebound off of his armor. I just hit him and he gets knocked back, as God intended. I really fucking hate these horn-blowing enemies. They are so noisy. I don't like loud noises personally, and I feel like they can spot you from incredible distances, even in the darkness. And then they just fucking go hog wild on that horn. Yeah, super annoying enemy. A lot of times there isn't even other enemies near them for them to alert, but they're just so fucking noisy, man. Like just shut up. Blow the horn once and just be done with it. But anyway. Here I'm going to purposely walk into the bleed so that I can show off the new bleed mechanics. So what I did there was, after being bled, I got a little tooltip that said staunch bleeding. When you staunch the bleeding, think of it like getting bled in Monster Hunter. If you crouch and you just don't do anything, you can remove the bleeding sooner without taking continuous ticks of damage from it. So that was added due to player feedback, because thankfully this dev, even though he does have like his own vision of the game, he is still listening to player feedback to a degree. Mind you, there's still a lot of stuff that I wish would get changed, but you know, beggars can't be choosers. At the very least, bleed, I would say, was like a huge offender in its previous state, where it just did unblockable damage to you, and even the weakest enemies that bled you felt like mini bosses, because if they touched you, you were just fucked, right? Like, you get hit by a shitty mosquito, you kill it instantly, but it nicked you once, so oh, there goes 80% of your HP. Yeah, it was just super not fun, not fair. But the new staunch bleed mechanic, bleed still works the way that it did before, where it eats into your stamina. Unfortunately, that's not something he was willing to budge on, but now there is some amount of counterplay to it. So there's still a lot of cases where you won't be allowed to just stand still and staunch the bleeding. It does still counter two-handed weapons, because two-handed weapons, at least when you're using the mighty perk that lets you one-hand, they do still cost stamina. So make no mistake, it's still strong, it's still pretty fucking OP, but you're not gonna feel like you're being cheated because a mosquito nicked you. And you can see, like, this isn't a particularly OP two-handed weapon by any means, but I am like blitzing through this guy's health pretty well. However, if I did get bled there and I had no stamina, that fight would have looked a little bit different. So, pretty clean stage 1. And there is the weapon that I'm using for the rest of the run. Yeah, 5 slashing damage. Slashing is the preferred damage type so that you can deal with zombies and shit. But yeah, 5 raw damage on an attack. That's pretty fucking good, you know, I can't really say no to that. I think I also ended up picking up the health potion here. I would have actually taken the helmet here that gives HP, but I just didn't notice it. I think even if I didn't buy that potion, I might have still not been able to afford it. The reason the video is not very long is not actually because I edit it, but it's because I take Bone Binder here. Now, Bone Binder, it's alright. I'm not going to pretend like it's super OP. I think it's strong, but it's as strong as what it needs to be, right? It doesn't need buffs, it doesn't need nerfs. But the way that it works is after you kill an enemy, you summon a skeleton for a short period of time. The duration is just long enough for you to get value as long as you're running through the rooms really, really fast. So that's pretty much what happens here, is I go through, I kill enemies as quickly as possible, and then I just blitz from room to room so that I can get as much value as I can out of the skeletons. Mind you, there's still a lot of cases where I summon skeletons and they time out without doing anything. Like here, I didn't even do anything. I just went into the next room and a quarter of the duration of the skeleton was already gone, right? So, it does definitely encourage you to be moving really fast throughout the dungeon, which is why the video is so short. Generally, I do spend upwards of like 45 minutes to an hour in a run because I take my time. I don't want to be blitzing through, but when you have a perk that, you know, the perk is literally on a timer, you kind of do have to move a lot faster than you normally would like. Something to keep in mind is if the skeletons kill an enemy, that doesn't count for you killing an enemy. So they can't get this chain of skeletons going on their own. You actually have to be in the combat, dealing the final blow. Generally, it's not super recommended to try to time it so that you're getting the last hit in. Just play aggressive, right? Run in there, fight with them. Don't let them play the game for you, to be honest. I mean, if you're one of those people that plays Elden Ring with summons, I mean, I'm sorry, but this just isn't the game for you. This game is very hard. You do have to get involved in the combat. And when summons do get implemented in the future, the dev has already made it pretty clear, like, hey, I'm not just going to have bodies that play the game for you. You know, I still want the players actively engaging in the gameplay. The game is going to be hard no matter what class you pick, etc., etc. Now, there is a tome there. I would love to pick it up, but unfortunately, the class that I'm playing has a super, super detrimental negative passive that says she can't read. Doesn't sound that bad, right? Well, you can't use tomes because books involve reading. You can't use scrolls because scrolls involve reading. And the obelisks that give you a direction when you're, when you interact with them, they tell you, hey, the boss is in this direction. They give you like a little arrow on your screen. You can't read those either. So if I backtrack a lot in this second floor, that's why. It's because, on top of having to go back and remember where all the chests were, I also have to find the boss room again because it's not really marked on my minimap anymore. Or, well, there is no minimap, but you know what I mean. It's not marked on my screen. So yeah, my sense of direction, which is already pretty bad, is compiled because of the class that I'm playing. So, personally, I think it's probably the worst negative effect out of all the character passives. I think that one is by far the worst. After Friar's fat debuff, I think the fat debuff, I mean, it's super fucking bad. But this one, it's a lot worse than you think on paper. Like, okay, so I can't use scrolls, I can't use tomes, sure. I guess I don't really have too much access to magic. You can still use spell rods, but obviously you have to find those, and scrolls are just way more abundant. But think about this. When you open up a healing chest, a lot of times it's not actually a health potion. A lot of times you get a scroll. A scroll with a healing spell. So now, all of a sudden, a lot of the loot that you could have used, you open up that healing chest, you're hoping for a health potion. If you're playing any other class and you get a healing scroll, you're like, okay, I would have preferred a health potion, but I can work with this. She can't work with it. She's just fucked. So, even more reason why I think having like the skeletons as an extra sort of layer of defense between you and the enemies is really good in this run. I ended up picking up this Mace of Vigor, and you saw earlier, like, that was the fight where I almost fucking died, because I tried dual-wielding my two-handed weapons, and that's the reason why I think that they should have innate poise on their attacks, because that guy just kept chaining me, right? I was trying to do my attacks, I was trying to just blitz through him. I was fine to trade damage, as long as I was actually trading damage, but he was just interrupting me constantly, right? She does start with built-in poise, but I don't actually think the poise applies to the weapon swings. So I think two-handed weapons can be strong, but the change that I would make to them right now, this is the only change I'd make, but just to make them feel good, I would make it so that on your swings you have innate poise. So your swing is guaranteed to go through, unless you're fighting someone, like, unless you get hit by like a fucking truck, right? Like, if you get hit by another enemy that's hitting you with a two-handed weapon, sure, I can understand that staggering you out of your attack. But if you're just getting hit by, like, shitty sword swings, I think that my swing should take priority and still go through, right? So, yeah. Generally don't recommend dual-wielding them. I think it becomes more viable if you're playing in multiplayer. To be fair, I think this class in general is more viable in multiplayer. Let me explain why. In single player, you could, like, the weaknesses of the two-handed weapons is already pretty fucking evident. Like, I feel like if you know anything about this game, it's pretty obvious why weapons that are slow are generally not preferred, right? Or weapons that eat up your stamina when you're using them are generally not preferred, right? Or why a character that can't use 80% of the magic in this game, generally not preferred. In multiplayer, and I mean in, like, usually in parties of 3 or more, because in parties of 2, you're probably not going to pick a Barbarian as the second option. You probably want to have the Friar, because the Friar is, like, supposed to be the multiplayer class. You know, you can heal your allies and shit. But I feel like in parties of 3 or more, she's more preferred because she comes with innate mighty, so she just takes priority on picking up two-handed weapons. She doesn't lose anything for it because other classes have to give up their left-hand slot. She doesn't have to, right? So it kind of gets rid of the issue of two different players fighting for loot, because you now want different loot, right? Like, she wants things that other classes generally don't. Here, this looks like an ugly situation, but you can see the skeletons that just kind of run in. Again, create space, create chaos, make sure the enemies are not fully focused on me, and then when the opportunity arises, I just run in and rush them down. But that could have been a really ugly situation if I got hit by, like, a stray fireball, and the other two enemies were just chaining me, and I was trying to get my attacks off while I was taking active damage, getting stun locked. You know the deal. We find a pretty good bow, so now if we need to, we can play from range. It's actually a producing longbow, so I don't have to keep all these arrows. When I run out of arrows, it's just going to magically produce arrows on its own. I actually tried to lock onto the egg there, but you can't, so... Yeah, the lock-on mechanics in this game are still not perfect. Hopefully the dev decides to come back to them in the future, but I would say the game is definitely more than playable right now, at the very least. There I tried to, you know, grab the obelisk and get an idea for where the boss room is, but again, she can't fucking read, so... If your sense of direction is as terrible as I am, probably don't play this class. Yeah, in multiplayer, you can make her like a more frontliner, tank focused. Well, I wouldn't really say she's a tank, because again, you can't really trade hits effectively. She's more of like a hit and run, you know, deal a bunch of damage, back away, deal a bunch of damage, back away. There what I did is I actually aggroed the egg, so that it would start hatching, and then as soon as it hatches, I kill the thing that's inside so that I can get a free skeleton, and then explore the rest of the rooms. It turned out not to be necessary, but if that tortured prisoner that I came across was a knight, for example, or that bell demon, I would have been validated and, you know, taking the extra time to just get a free summon. And the boys run in. Enemies are a bit focused on them. And you can see, like, I got chilled there. That could have been a really bad situation, but my boys were just taking the aggro for me. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to do the spell demon with no summons because they timed out. So we find him here. I'm glad I happen to have a ranged weapon. See, even though you're playing the Barbarian, you should still make sure that you keep as many options open as possible. When you see a bow, pick it up. Or if you see like a triple crossbow, absolutely pick that shit up, so that you can deal with situations like this and not get absolutely butt-fucked by ghosts. Because the chill status effect is 10 times worse on the Barbarian than it is on any other class. When you get chilled, it slows your attack speed, and since she already has slow attack speed, it basically compiles the issue. So it just makes it so much worse. You'll see me get chilled in this run because I do end up fighting the Demon of Bone, which, by the way, is the only demon boss that I think two-handed weapons are actually good against. I think against the other ones, the two-handed weapons just absolutely fucking suck. So at least we got lucky with our RNG this time around. We run in and we try to melt this guy. Like, I have a very strong two-handed weapon, and even running in and just fucking rushing him down, when I got the jump on him, I still took a pretty hefty chunk of damage. So don't think that just because you feel like you have an OP loadout that you ever are stronger than the enemies in this game. You just have to be playing better than them at all times. I'm gonna really quickly grab a drink so that my throat doesn't dry out. How's everyone's days been? Hope everybody's staying hydrated. Hope everybody's playing Into Evil, because this game is fucking awesome. I love it. When this game is actually like complete, like fucking 5 years from now, maybe longer, because again, it's just a singular dev. This will probably be like my fucking favorite game of all time. I feel like there's not a lot of games that have like a true dungeon crawler experience, but I would say this is pretty much the closest you can get to true dungeon crawling. Especially if you're playing the starting class, who starts with basically nothing except the short sword, where almost anything you pick up is going to be an upgrade. And I think right now I'm actually lost. I'm trying to like find the direction to go. Thankfully we found it pretty quickly there. And you can see there, I was mid-swing. The guy hit me with this fucking super tiny attack, and that was enough to just knock me out of my swing. I think these weapons have potential to be very strong, even in a single player environment, but they need to have built-in poison in their attacks. I really think that if I'm swinging something super fucking heavy like this, that just getting poked should not cause my attack to suddenly fizzle. Yeah, we're just exploring, trying to get some loot. I think I pretty much have the loadout that I take to the final boss at this point, though. And I've got a decent amount of HP. I decided to drop my arrows there because I don't need them. My bow, as I mentioned before, it magically produces arrows on its own. So I might as well pick up some pebbles. If an enemy gets on top of me and I just need them to get the fuck off of me, they could be useful. Because two-handed weapons do have the issue where, like, you can just get rushed and butt-fucked. Just because of the fact that anything interrupts your swings. It fucking sucks. But, you know, if you've played them and you agree with my take, go ahead and join the Discord, the Into Evil Discord, and leave a suggestion talking about, hey, you know, let's get some stagger resistance on the fucking swings. Because I like them a lot. In Elden Ring, I almost exclusively use like really heavy weapons, but the reason that I like them is because they can just plow through everything, right? Like, you have to take fights usually a little bit slower, but once you get in on an enemy, you fucking go in on them and you just fucking tear that pussy up. Which is not the case in the skin. You know, personally, I don't think her starting weapon nerf should have been a thing. I feel like it was fine to be at 4 damage. I feel like that was kind of the saving grace with her class. Was that at least she started off with a weapon that was super good at plowing through the very first room of the dungeon. The first floor of the dungeon, even. But now she doesn't even have that. Like, if you ask me, like, personally, I think she's just playing the game on hard mode. Not having access to 80% of magic, not having access to the boss arrow. Honestly, the boss arrow thing is not too huge of a deal, but it's just like a quality of life removed that doesn't need to be. But yeah, not being able to use like 90% of magic, that one is pretty fucking bad in my opinion. And starting off with a weapon that isn't that good, like, I would say that a dull great axe is actually worse than a short sword, because the short sword at least has like a really fast moveset. The dull great axe is just slow, and you're not one-shotting with it. So it can actually make encounters take like way longer than they really should be taking. So it almost feels like she even starts off weaker than the adventurer, who basically starts off with nothing, right? But anyway, yeah, like I said, we get lucky with the Demon of Bone. This is the only boss where I think two-handed weapons are just superior. Now, getting chilled is still a huge issue in this fight. You have to take it slow. Make sure that you're waiting out of spells. But the reason why they're strong is because you can run in on him like that. And when he puts up his frost shields that circle around him, you can just plow through them, right? You don't rebound off the attack like you would if you're using a one-handed weapon. So just make some space, take it slow, and when you see an opportunity, just fucking go in on him. You can pretty much just ignore the frost shield mechanic that he has. And you can see, like, look how slow that attack was. I got chilled, and it was like being fucking withered by Nasus in League of Legends. Shit took ages to come out, but mostly clean fight. We just kind of rushed him down. Do not expect to be able to do that with the other demon bosses, by the way. Two-handed weapons are absolutely fucking miserable against them. I happen to get the one demon boss where they're, like, pretty good on him. Here, I decided to pick up these greaves because I realized my boots are about to break. I don't want to be in the middle of the next boss fight and suddenly my gear breaks. So I might as well just take the extra resistances. And there's really nothing else I can buy, so it is what it is. We take Frigid Aegis here because it's the only thing here that works. The other two literally couldn't use them. I wish that Iron Maiden that gave you superpowers actually looked at the stuff in your build. Kind of like in Windblown, if anybody's played that roguelike. It's made by the Dead Cells original developers. For the upgrades that you can pick up in a run, when you find them, the game actually looks at what's currently in your build. So if you have a fire weapon, it offers you synergy with fire. And if you don't have a fire weapon, then it's not going to give you fire synergy, right? And that's just to make it feel like you don't reach an upgrade point and there's nothing that you can pick up, or you're forced to pick up something useless. There I throw a pebble at him to knock him into the spikes, and for some reason he was just immune to the spikes there. I don't know if that's a bug or what the fuck the deal is with that. Varix is supposed to be able to get hurt by spikes when you knock him into them, but I chucked that pebble at him, knocked him straight into the spikes, and he just didn't fucking get hit there. Not sure what the deal was with that. Anyway, if you're playing melee, make sure you have a ton of stamina coming into this fight, because it's really rough otherwise. And if you were paying close attention there, I actually threw a pebble to break his spell shield. You're probably not going to have pebbles by the time you come into this fight, but if you're like me and you had nothing better to pick up, you might as well pick up the pebble. They're not super useful. Like, I've seen a lot of people preach in the Into Evil Discord server that, oh my god, pebbles are so awesome. They're not, but they do have their applications where they can be good, and this is one of them. Swap to my bow, break the spell shield, go in on him, running attack, hit him, deal a bunch of damage. And there you have it. Pretty easy. The hardest part about the two-handed weapons is definitely the second boss of the run. Core 2 bosses absolutely fucking suck with the two-handed weapons. Like I said, Demon of Bone was just kind of a lucky fight. That's the ideal one that you get. Otherwise, just stick to playing this class in multiplayer. Anyway, that's it. See ya!